I've always had a goal to hit 1,000 likes on a video, but you legends smashed past that and got one of my videos to over 2K likes. Let's break even more records on this video. Please smash that like button. And I want to try this one thing. I want to know who my devoted listeners are. So once you've done that, comment down below that you hit that like button hard, or even a kind message. Let's see who our loyal devoted viewers are. You know who you are. Once again, thank you guys so much. Now to these amazing stories.
You ever wake up and just know something is off, but you can't explain it? That was me. It started with the corner of my coffee table. It had this sharp edge that, for whatever reason, had never gotten in my way before, but now it was like my leg was magnetized to it. First time, I chalked it up to clumsiness. Second time, I just blamed my lack of caffeine. But the third time I barked my shit on that thing, I knew something wasn't right. I didn't even suspect Kylie at first. She was weird, yeah, after we broke up. She'd do this thing where she'd send me pictures of furniture sets and say this would have looked great in our future home. Just out of the blue, I'd ignore them. She never threatened me or anything. She wasn't loud, just sort of quietly unsettling. But I'd never thought she'd actually pull something like this. So one night, I'm half watching some show, legs up on the couch, and I reach for my water bottle like I always do. Except it's not there. It's on the other side of the coffee table. Now that made me stop, because I always keep my stuff on the right side of the couch, right side of the table. I'm stupidly consistent. That's when I started looking around. My lamp? It had been turned just slightly so the light hit the opposite wall. A stack of coasters that I kept under the TV stand were now lined up neatly on the shelf. My bookshelf, which I kept alphabetized, don't judge me, was now organized by color. Like some Pinterest page come to life. I wouldn't have even noticed that last one if a bright red copy of a book I haven't touched in 2 years hadn't been sitting on top, angled like it was meant to be displayed. It wasn't just a prank or something random. It was too careful, like someone came in and wanted me to know, but not right away. That's when I checked the front door. Nothing broken. Locked tight. But I kept the spare key to a tiny fake rock on my balcony. I know, stupid, but it's not like I live on the first floor. Kelly knew about it, though. She helped me set it up when we were dating. At this point, I was kind of freaking out, trying to remember if I'd given the key to anyone else, or if maybe I'd moved things and just forgot. But it didn't add up. I'd have noticed this stuff. I started checking my security cam. Just one above the door, inside. And nothing. But that's when it hit me. I never set it to record unless I was out of town. And I hadn't been. I'd been here, asleep. It was worse than someone sneaking in while I was out. She'd come in while I was home. I was probably 10 feet away from her while she was in my living room, quietly moving things just enough to mess with me. I couldn't even figure out what she was doing. She didn't take anything. She didn't leave a note. Just moved my stuff. What really freaked me out was thinking about her standing there, in the dark, rearranging my life like it was some kind of dollhouse. She must have taken her shoes off at the door or something because I didn't hear a thing. No creaks on the floor, no doors opening. Just woke up the next day feeling like I slept weird. After that realization, I started going back through texts. A few days before I started noticing stuff, she sent me one that said, "Bet your place feels different without me." I thought it was just dramatic nonsense, but no, she meant it. I changed the locks right away. Got rid of the balcony key too. But every time I'd come home, I'd check everything like a detective. Like I'd run my finger across dust on the counter to see if someone had wiped it. I started taking pictures of where I left things, just so I could compare later. It got to the point where I was low-key paranoid all the time. I wasn't scared she'd hurt me or anything. It wasn't about that. It was worse. It was like she was trying to quietly rewrite reality and make me doubt my own brain. I told a couple friends, and they thought it was hilarious at first. Like, oh wow, she just has OCD or something. But they didn't get it. It wasn't about being tidy. It was about control. She didn't want me back. She wanted me off balance. She wanted to be in my head without ever texting or showing up or yelling. She wanted me to never be sure. Honestly, I think that's why it worked so well. If she trashed the place or sent a threatening message, it would have been obvious. But this was subtle. It was slow, like a gas leak, silent and creeping. Eventually I moved, not just because of her, but it was a factor. I didn't even tell anyone my new address except for people I could trust completely. I left behind a lot of my furniture too. That coffee table especially. I didn't want to see it again. To this day, I still check how my stuff is positioned before I leave. I've got a weird ritual now where I mentally note where I put everything in the living room before I go to bed. Sometimes I wonder if she ever came back again and I just didn't notice. Maybe she did it more than once. Maybe I only caught one of them. It messes with your mind, not being able to prove something happened. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. No damage. Just the creeping feeling that someone was in your space, making small edits to your life like they were proofreading a document. There's no real end to this one. I never confronted her. Never got a confession. I'm not even 100% sure it was her. But who else would have done something like that? It's been over a year, and I still keep my bookshelf in the same weird color order. Not because I like it, but because I want to know if it ever changes again. You can say I'm being dramatic, but once someone breaks into your life like that without leaving a single footprint, it's hard not to keep looking over your shoulder. Not for them, but for whatever quiet chaos they might leave behind. It started with an email from someone in accounting. Just a quick, hey, hope everything's all right. Let me know if you need anything kind of message. Friendly, vague, nothing to raise alarms. I thought maybe they sent it to the wrong person. Then came another one from a coworker in marketing, someone I barely spoke to, saying, hang in there. I reply like, thanks, and then moved on. It wasn't until someone from HR scheduled a casual check-in that I realized something weird was going on. Simon was always the type of guy who looked chill on the outside, but had this quiet way of keeping tabs on everything. He was never dramatic, didn't blow up my phone after we broke up, never begged to talk. Honestly, I thought we ended things clean. A few awkward messages at most, and then nothing. So I didn't even connect the dots at first. I was just trying to figure out why everyone at work suddenly started treating me like I'd been through a trauma. The HR meeting is what really threw me. The rep asked if there was anything I wanted to come forward about. I sat there blinking at the screen like, come forward about what? She was polite, but clearly thought she was handling something sensitive. I pushed her until she finally admitted they'd gotten some concerns from internal sources that I might be involved in something sketchy, something to do with fraud. When I asked who said that, she wouldn't tell me. Said it was confidential. My chest got tight. I hadn't done anything, obviously, but when your own company says the word fraud with your name in the same sentence, you start panicking. I thought maybe someone had messed up the payroll or confused me with someone else. I spent the whole weekend tearing through every email I'd ever sent, every invoice, even my freaking time cards. Nothing. I was losing sleep, thinking maybe I'd somehow messed up something huge without realizing it. But then Monday morning, my buddy from another department sent me a screenshot. It was from a LinkedIn message, someone claiming to be me, messaging him about a personal opportunity. It was weirdly formal, like it was written by someone who Googled how business people talk. But the photo, it was mine. The name was mine. The job title was close enough to be believable, and the profile had a whole work history that lined up almost perfectly. Except this version of me had a couple consulting roles that sounded fake as hell, and a long-winded bio about integrity and transparency that no real person would ever write about themselves. The messages were subtle. Stuff like, I've been hearing a few things, nothing confirmed, but if you ever get asked about me, just remember I'm innocent until proven guilty. Another one said, funny how people at the top sometimes bend the rules. Hopefully HR doesn't find anything they weren't meant to. The way it was worded, it wasn't direct enough to get flagged, but shady enough to plant doubt. The kind of thing that makes people start whispering. That's when it clicked. Simon. The guy had always been obsessed with his LinkedIn. He bragged once about how he got a job by DMing the hiring manager every day for 2 weeks. I remembered him talking about burner emails and how easy it was to make fake accounts if you just knew how to work around the verification stuff. I checked the fake profile again. It had mutual connections with like 10 of my coworkers. No wonder people believed it. It looked real. He even reposted a couple articles I had actually shared before, just to mimic my activity. One of the posts was a weird quote about accountability. Like, he wasn't just copying me, he was trying to make me into a character. I reported the account, obviously. It got taken down eventually, but the damage was already done. The rumors had legs by then. People had screenshots. HR asked me to make a statement in writing about the situation, and even though they technically said they believed me, I could feel the shift. It's hard to explain, But once suspicion creeps in, it doesn't leave easily. There's always this second layer to every conversation, like people are waiting for something to leak or explode. I confronted Simon over text, just straight up asked him if he made a fake account. He responded with this smug little "you think I have time for that," and then blocked me. That was enough for me. He didn't deny it, didn't get mad, just bailed. Classic Simon. I told a few people what happened, the ones I could trust. Most of them were shocked, but a couple weren't. Apparently, after we broke up, he'd been liking old photos of me on social media, adding random coworkers, and leaving weird comments under posts that had nothing to do with him. Stuff like some people aren't who they pretend to be, or interesting what gets buried in plain sight. He was planting seeds for months. What gets me the most is how slow it was. He didn't rage out or try to embarrass me publicly. He just slithered in through the cracks, quiet, intentional, like he wanted to ruin my reputation without ever having to say my name. And it worked. For a while at least, I spent weeks trying to rebuild trust at work, explaining what happened, trying to prove I wasn't some kind of con artist. Eventually, things settled down. A couple people apologized for jumping to conclusions. HR dropped the whole thing after I showed them the fake profile and explained the context. But there are still folks I work with who give me this look, like they're not quite sure, like they still wonder. I changed all my passwords, set up two-step verification on literally everything. Even deleted my old LinkedIn and made a new one from scratch. Took me forever to get rid of the feeling that someone was watching what I was doing, waiting to twist it. Simon's gone now, moved to another city from what I heard. Probably out there playing another long game on some other poor soul. I don't care anymore. But every time I get a random message on social media or some unknown number texts me, I still get that tight feeling in my stomach. Like, what if he's still playing? That's the worst part. When your ex turns into a ghost that lives in the shadows of your online life. No mourning, no closure. Just this slow burn of paranoia that never fully goes away. There was this one weekend where everything felt too calm, like suspiciously calm. I was out with my girlfriend grabbing lunch, walking her dog, just having one of those lazy Saturdays that make you forget life's chaotic sometimes. Then she got this weird call from her mom. Not urgent, but just weird. Her mom was asking all these loaded questions. Stuff like, has he ever raised his voice around you, and you don't feel like he's hiding anything to you? My girlfriend brushed it off, but I saw the way her face changed. She laughed it off, but there was this little crease in her forehead that hadn't been there a minute before. Later that night, we were watching something on TV, and she said her dad had called her too, asking about me. I thought maybe I did something dumb without realizing it. Maybe I accidentally posted something online that looked bad, or maybe someone saw me talking to an ex or something and misread it. But the questions didn't sound like suspicion. They sounded like warnings. Next morning, I went into her kitchen to make coffee and saw a letter on the counter. Real paper, envelope, stamp, and everything. Nobody sends letters anymore, so I was curious. The envelope wasn't addressed to my girlfriend. It was to her parents, from someone named Concerned Neighbor. That's how it was signed. No return address. But there was my name right in the middle of it, bold as hell. I read it. Of course I read it. Anyone would have, and that's when everything clicked. The letter was a full-on character assassination. It said I had a disturbing history of manipulative behavior, that I had outbursts, and a dangerous temper. It claimed I once had the police call on me for throwing things during an argument never happened. It even said I had been forcibly removed from a therapy group for being too unstable. Every sentence was written like it came from someone trying to sound official, but it was too dramatic to be real, like a Lifetime movie script. I remember reading that last line. Please encourage your daughter to reconsider this relationship before it's too late. It made me laugh at first, but then I started feeling sick. This wasn't some stranger being dramatic. This had Laura written all over it. We dated for about 6 months. Things were hot and cold constantly. We'd have a great weekend, and then she'd disappear for 3 days and come back with some emotional apology. She wasn't evil or anything. Just intense. She needed drama the way some people need caffeine. When we broke up, she cried for 3 hours, then told me I'd regret everything. I thought that was the end of it. We blocked each other on everything. No contact, no messages, just silence. But Laura had this thing where she never let go of anything. She used to screenshot old messages I sent her and read them back to me during fights, trying to prove a point. She'd say things like, "You promised this, and you said you never do that." Always collecting ammo. That should have been the red flag. She didn't want to move on. She wanted to build a case. I tried to play it cool. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it with my girlfriend right away. I asked if I could talk to her parents, just to clear things up, but she said they were already skeptical of the letter. Her mom thought it was fake the second she read it. Said the handwriting was too neat, too deliberate, like someone trying hard not to be recognized. But then more letters showed up. One at their house, one at her aunt's, even one at her parents' church, all handwritten, all signed "Concerned Neighbor." Same tone, same kind of stuff. My girlfriend's family lives in the suburbs, so the idea of a mysterious neighbor warning them started to spread around. People started asking questions. Her mom's friends were texting her, "Is everything okay with your daughter's boyfriend?" Her dad even asked if he should have a background check run on me, just to be safe. It went from being annoying to terrifying real fast. Laura wasn't just trying to mess with me anymore. She was trying to destroy any support system I had. I imagined her sitting in her apartment, scribbling these letters out like she was writing diary entries, folding them up, licking stamps, picturing her words creeping into people's homes like poison. I tried to confront her. Couldn't call, obviously, so I emailed her, kept it short. I said I knew what she was doing, and if it didn't stop, I'd go to the police. She responded within 5 minutes. Said I was delusional and that paranoia is one of the symptoms I should probably get help for. The worst part, she was so calm, so polished, like she prepared her response ahead of time, just waiting for me to catch on. My girlfriend stayed solid through all of it, thankfully. She never believed the letters, but her family, they were rattled. Even the ones who said they didn't buy it still acted different around me for a while. Her uncle gave me this awkward side hug at dinner like I was some war veteran recovering from PTSD. It made me furious because no matter how fake the story was, it left a mark. Eventually, we filed a police report. They couldn't do much since she hadn't technically threatened anyone, but we had all the letters. My girlfriend's dad even hired someone he knew to keep watch on their mailbox for a while. The letters stopped after that, just vanished, like Laura realized she'd pushed it far enough and didn't want actual trouble. But the damage was done. Her parents still look at me with this tiny trace of doubt sometimes. Like they want to believe me, but there's still that 2% that wonders. That's what Laura wanted. She didn't need to convince everyone. I think she just wanted someone to doubt me. To leave that crack open so she could live rent-free in our lives, even after she was gone. I moved apartments, changed numbers, wiped old photos off social media. I even got a P.O. box just in case. My girlfriend and I are still together, but every now and then I get this sinking feeling when I open the mailbox. Like maybe there'll be another envelope, neatly addressed, no return info. Just waiting to make my life hell again. There was this week at work where I thought I was getting pranked by someone in the office. I come in every morning and find another random envelope on my desk or in my mailbox. At first it was funny. The first few were just weird little postcards from some far-off church in Kansas or flyers about end-of-days conspiracies. One was just a letter talking about the dangers of microwaves. I figured someone in the cleaning crew was messing around, or that it was some kind of weird HR initiative. Like, Mental Health Week, let's all get weird. But then it didn't stop. It just kept getting weirder and louder. By Wednesday, I had a small pile of junk mail sitting under my monitor. Political pamphlets from both sides of the spectrum, anti-vax newsletters, one envelope full of bumper stickers that said, "I am a warrior of light," and a creepy booklet from something called the Church of Cosmic Return. It wasn't just one or two. It was dozens. Stuffing the mailbox. Some handwritten, some pre-printed, some with my name in all caps like I was on a mailing list. It didn't make sense. I never signed up for any of this. Then HR got involved. I walked into the office and found my supervisor standing next to my desk, holding one of the flyers like it was radioactive. It had this giant red text on it that said, "The giveaway are mentee as lying to you," and a hand-drawn cartoon of the president with devil horns. She didn't say anything, just handed it to me and raised her eyebrows like, "Care to explain this?" I started laughing and said, "I have no idea where this crap is coming from." She didn't laugh back. Just said, "Well, they're all addressed to you and they're arriving here, so we need to figure it out." Boom. Now it was a discussion. They had a sit-down with me later that day, just a casual check-in, or that's what they called it, but it felt like an interrogation. They wanted to know if I was affiliated with any groups, if I'd recently signed up for mailing lists, if I'd made political statements on company property. They were trying to be polite about it, but I could feel it, like they were trying to figure out if I'd snapped and gone full manifesto. That night, I went home and started really thinking about who would even want to do this. And once I started thinking about Jacob, it all came together so fast it made me sick. Jacob and I didn't end on good terms. I caught him creeping on some guy's Instagram like he was single, and when I called him out, he said I was suffocating him. We broke up in the middle of a frozen yogurt place, and he left me there with his half-eaten dessert and a bunch of people staring. After that, he messaged me a few times, mostly random guilt-trippy stuff, in silence, for almost a year. And now suddenly my work mailbox is exploding with cult ads and conspiracy trash. Jacob always had this sarcastic, vengeful streak. He wouldn't scream at you, he'd just mess with your life in a way that made you doubt your own memory. Like changing a shared playlist and denying it, or logging into my streaming account and screwing with my recommendations just to throw me off. The mail thing was so him. It was quiet, chaotic, and impossible to prove. I started checking the return addresses. Some were obviously fake. Some were real but completely unrelated to each other. They weren't just from one place. They were from everywhere. Texas, Florida, small towns I'd never heard of. It must have taken hours, maybe days. Signing me up for every mailing list he could find, but not with my home address. He used my work address. He wanted it to be public, embarrassing, inconvenient. That's what made it so genius. He didn't threaten me, didn't contact me. He just let the paper pile up until I looked like a walking QAnon recruitment officer. The mail kept coming, every day. My desk started looking like a doomsday prepper's storage unit. HR started having conversations about office image. Someone even put in a complaint about politically charged materials and shared spaces, all because of these stupid envelopes showing up with my name on them. I tried to trace it. Set up filters, contacted a few of the places that were sending stuff. One of them told me the request came from an online form filled out by Jacob Taylor 79. Another one just gave me a copy of the submission email. It had my name, my office address, and a message that said, "Please rush materials, very interested." Like he was trying to make it seem urgent that I get this crap. I never thought I'd be calling mailing list companies and begging them to take me off. Some of them were easy, others not so much. One thought I was pranking her, like I was trying to get free stuff. Another asked if I was looking for salvation. I didn't even respond. I just hung up and put my head down on the desk. After about 3 weeks, I finally went to my boss and explained the whole thing. Told her it was probably an ex. I brought proof. Showed her the submission forms I've tracked. Thankfully, she believed me. She even laughed a little and said it was some creative retaliation. But she also told me to get a P.O. box from now on for anything personal. Company policy, just in case. Eventually, the flood slowed down. I guess Jacob got bored or ran out of mailing lists. But the damage stuck around for a while. People at work still make jokes sometimes. Like when someone gets a package, they'll say, "Hope it's not another cult starter kit from Jacob." It's funny now, kind of, but back then, it felt like my name was becoming a punchline. What really messes with me is how invisible the whole thing was. He didn't have to show up. Didn't have to text. Didn't have to say a word. He just used the internet and a mailing address and turned my life into a joke. A long, slow, paper-cut kind of joke that bled me out over weeks. I still check the mail at work carefully even now. There's always a little jolt when I see a weird envelope, like I'm expecting another wave. Another round of leaflets trying to convert me to a flat earth pyramid scheme or whatever. That's the worst part. He got in without ever stepping foot in the building. It started with my eyebrows. Not in a metaphorical sense. Literally my eyebrows. I woke up one morning, looked in the mirror while brushing my teeth, and noticed they looked thinner. Not gone, but off. Uneven. Sparse in a way that didn't feel natural. I leaned in, squinting, thinking maybe I slept on them weird or something. That's a thing, right? Maybe I rubbed my face in the pillow too hard. But they looked patchy, like someone had taken a tiny razor and made random swipes in the night. I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I just hadn't noticed before. So I moved on with my morning. Took a shower, like I always do, grabbed my shampoo, lathered up, and noticed my scalp felt kind of tingly. Not painful, just weird. Like minty toothpaste but on your head. I figured maybe I bought a new bottle without thinking or got one of those invigorating formulas that try to be fancy. Didn't think too much of it. That was until I toweled off and looked in the mirror again. I was drying my hair when a clump, like a small nest, fell out into the sink. Not a few strands. A chunk. I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach, and I just stood there staring at the hair. Then I looked back at myself in the mirror and saw these bald spots forming in my temples, and my eyebrows looked worse than before, like they were halfway through disappearing. I panicked. Full-on panic. I thought something was seriously wrong with me. Like my immune system was turning against me or I had some chemical reaction to the shampoo. I started Googling hair loss diseases while still dripping wet. The more I searched, the more I spiraled. Alopecia, thyroid issues, stress-related shedding. I was already halfway through diagnosing myself with everything WebMD had to offer. It wasn't until I was in my bedroom, drying off and getting dressed, that I remembered Meg still had a key to my place. Meg and I had been over for a while, officially like a year, but we had one of those breakups that stretched itself out like melted cheese, off and on vague messages, occasional hope you're doing well texts that meant the opposite. She never fully accepted that we were done. She guilt-tripped me about things I didn't even remember doing. Accused me of leading her on, even when I hadn't seen her in weeks. She had this way of making everything seem like I owed her some emotional debt I didn't remember borrowing. She still had a key from when we were dating. I never changed the locks. I meant to. It was one of those things I kept putting off. I figured she'd never use it. We hadn't talked in months. But once the hair stuff started happening, everything came into focus like one of those crime board montages in movies. I walked into the bathroom again and picked up the shampoo bottle. I held it up to the light and realized it wasn't the same one I bought. It looked the same, but the cap was slightly cracked, and the label had a tiny bubble under it, like someone had peeled it off and put it back on again. I opened it and gave it a sniff. It smelled fine. Normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't. So I did something dumb. I Googled shampoo that makes your hair fall out. Dozens of posts came up. Pranks, revenge stories, even some crazy Reddit threads where people admitted to switching shampoo with hair removal cream. I thought, no way, that's too extreme. That's movie-level petty. But then I remembered Meg had a cousin who was a hairstylist. She told me once, almost jokingly, that she knew how to mix formulas that could mess up someone's hair without them realizing it. At the time, I laughed. She said it like it was a fun fact. But now that I was standing there with half my eyebrows and a sink full of my own hair, it didn't feel funny. I went through my bathroom like I was doing an inventory check. Everything looked normal, but suddenly nothing felt safe. My face wash, my moisturizer, my body wash. I didn't trust any of it. I threw out 3 bottles immediately. Then I went to the front door and stared at the lock like it had betrayed me. I changed it the next day. I never saw her do it, never caught her in the act. But I didn't need to. I know Meg. I know the way she operates. She wouldn't scream in your face. She'd smile and walk away and then wait a month before getting revenge, so quiet you wouldn't even notice at first. That's what this was. Not loud, not violent. Just slow and humiliating. A sneaky attack on something visible and personal, something you can't explain to people without sounding crazy. I tried to fix it. Got new shampoo, started using this thickening serum someone on TikTok swore by. Went to a dermatologist who told me I was probably reacting to a harsh chemical and asked if I'd recently changed products. I just nodded, didn't bother explaining. What was I gonna say? My ex may have poisoned my toiletries because I broke up with her a year ago. I started filling in my eyebrows with a pencil for a while. Wore a hat. Stopped using the gym showers. Every time I looked in the mirror, I didn't see myself. I saw Meg smirk. What kills me is that she didn't need to do it. We weren't even in each other's lives anymore. She could have just moved on, dated someone new, lived her life. But instead, she used that one little thread she still had, an old key, and unraveled my confidence from the inside out. Not by yelling, not by texting. Just by walking into my home while I was asleep or at work and quietly replacing one bottle with another. It's been months now. My hair's mostly back. The eyebrows took longer, but they're fine. Still patchy if you look too close. Whatever. I tossed out everything in my bathroom and started over. Changed my routine. Changed my locks. Haven't heard from her since. But every time I grab a new bottle of shampoo, I twist the cap open and smell it before using it. Every single time. Doesn't matter what brand. Doesn't matter where I bought it. That paranoia is not going anywhere. Because once someone shows you they're willing to mess with your body just to get in your head, it's hard to trust anything again. Especially when it comes in a bottle and smells like nothing's wrong. It all started with a knock at the door, one of those sharp, official-sounding knocks that immediately makes you think, oh no, what did I forget to pay? I opened the door in gym shorts and socks, expecting a delivery or maybe some neighbor asking if I saw their cat. Instead, two people in city inspector jackets stood on my porch holding clipboards and serious expressions. The older one glanced down at his papers, then looked up at me and said, "We received a report that you're operating an unlicensed short-term rental property. We'll need to do a walkthrough." I blinked. What was the only thing I could manage? I wasn't running anything. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled like takeout and still had laundry on the floor from 3 days ago. I wasn't good at hosting anyone, let alone running an Airbnb. They weren't rude, but they weren't leaving either. They said there'd been multiple complaints filed. Said a neighbor had reported a rotating door of travelers and constant foot traffic, which was hilarious because I had no friends, lived alone, and the only person coming over regularly was a pizza guy who knew me by name. They didn't find anything, obviously. I walked them through the sad little apartment and they scribbled a few notes, took a couple photos, and then apologized for the inconvenience. I stood in the doorway, half confused, half embarrassed, watching them leave like I'd just been accused of running an illegal casino in my laundry room. 2 weeks later, it happened again. Different inspectors this time. Different department. Same accusation. This time they said I might be violating housing codes related to subletting. They wouldn't say who reported it, just that there'd been multiple tips. I told them this was the second time it happened, and they acted surprised, like they had no clue anyone had already come by. That's when I started to get suspicious. I wasn't a conspiracy theory guide, but how many times does your apartment get flagged by the city for something's obviously off? I started thinking back, trying to figure out who might hate me enough to do this. That's when Bradley came to mind. Now, Bradley wasn't a throw your phone in the toilet kind of crazy. He was more methodical, calculated. When we broke up, it wasn't even explosive, just quiet, cold, and distant. We drifted, argued a little, and then he packed up a box of stuff, said, "I hope you find what you're looking for," and left. It was so civil that I actually thought, wow, maybe we're gonna stay friends. Spoiler, we did not stay friends. After the second inspector visit, I went digging. Started calling around trying to find out where these reports were coming from. I got passed around a bunch, told it was confidential, but eventually, someone let slip that the complaints had been submitted anonymously through a public form on the city's website. All someone had to do was fill it out with your name, address, and the accusation. No proof required. That's when I knew it had to be him. Nobody else knew my address except close friends and family, and none of them would even joke about reporting me. But Bradley, he was just petty enough. He'd always had this passive-aggressive streak. Would never scream or fight, but he'd leave notes on my mirror like some people never think about how their actions affect others after I forgot to do dishes. He volunteered to fix something, then if I annoyed him, he'd undo it out of spite. Like once he changed all my smart lights to this harsh yellow color just because I said I preferred soft white. I checked the form myself. There it was, report an illegal short-term rental. No login, no verification. Anyone with a Wi-Fi connection in 5 minutes could blow up someone's life. Then it got worse. The third inspection happened on a Monday morning. I was working from home in the middle of a Zoom meeting when there was another knock. Same spiel, different angle. They said I'd been reported for excessive noise related to frequent guest turnover. I had to mute my call and let them in while my boss awkwardly watched me walk away from the camera. After that, I got a call from my landlord who was not thrilled. He said the building was getting flagged for repeated tenant violations, and if it kept happening, I might be in breach of my lease. I wanted to scream. I hadn't done anything. That night, I did the dumbest but most satisfying thing I've ever done. I made a burner account and messaged Bradley. Just sent one sentence. Hope it was worth it. He replied in less than 5 minutes. No idea what you're talking about. Sounds like you have enemies. The smiley face was what gave it away. He'd always used smiley faces in the most psychotic way. He once texted me, "Guess who left the fridge open?" after all the food spoiled, and never admitted it was him. I blocked him after that. I spent the next month paranoid, checking the front door every time someone knocked, looking over my shoulder when the mailman walked by, convinced he had a warrant or something. I started recording myself whenever someone visited the apartment just to prove I wasn't hosting people. I even put up a "no visitors" sign like a weirdo. Eventually, the inspection stopped. I think the city finally flagged the repeated complaints as false. Either that or Bradley got bored, but the fallout stayed. My landlord still doesn't fully trust me. My neighbors give me looks. One old lady on the second floor keeps calling me the Airbnb guy. I've tried explaining. People love a good rumor, and guy secretly running illegal rentals is way more interesting than the truth, which is guy minding his own business. The thing that really messes with me is how easy it was for him to do. No breaking and entering. No texts. No threats. Just a couple of clicks on a city website, and suddenly I'm being investigated like I'm smuggling tourists in through the air vents. I still live in the same place, but every time I hear a knock I tense up. It's not fear exactly. It's this stupid combination of dread and disbelief. Like, what now? What else could he possibly file a report about? Sometimes I wonder if I should have done something back, reported him for something. But the truth is, I don't think I have it in me. That kind of slow burn, bureaucratic revenge. That's Bradley's thing. I just want to go back to a life where my biggest issue is whether or not I remembered to buy toothpaste. Not whether a city inspector is about to accuse me of running a hostel out of my living room. You ever hear something secondhand that's so unsettling, your brain tries to convince you it's a misunderstanding? That was me. My girlfriend told me casually while scrolling through her phone at dinner that some woman had been parked outside her work lately. Just this car that shows up almost every day and sits there for a while, she said, like she was talking about weird weather. I froze because I already knew who it was before she said anything else. Ashley drove a silver Mazda with a dent in the back bumper and this air freshener shaped like a skull hanging from the rear view. The minute my girlfriend mentioned it, I pictured that skull. It used to make her car smell like fake cherries. It also used to make me nauseous on road trips. At first, I didn't say anything. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I told myself it couldn't be her. Ashley lived on the other side of the city, and we hadn't talked in almost a year. She was the kind of ex who didn't scream or throw things or send long, dramatic texts. No, she did something worse. She lingered. Quietly, uncomfortably. Always just around the edge of things, never directly confronting anything. But never actually leaving either. When we broke up, it was because she started getting strange. Possessive, but in this slow, creeping way. She'd show up uninvited to places, not even talk to me, just to be seen. She once sat in the parking lot of my gym for 2 hours, didn't come in, didn't text me, just sat there. I only found out because one of my friends recognized her and asked if everything was okay. I confronted her about it back then, and she made me feel like I was being weird. Said she happened to be nearby. Said it was a coincidence. She was always full of explanations that sounded just believable enough. I finally cut things off after she started following girls I interacted with online and then unfollowing them hours later. She was trying to stay invisible, but it was so obvious to me. So when my girlfriend brought up the car again a few days later, saying it was still showing up outside her office, something clicked. I asked her to describe it. She said it was silver. Said there was a dent on the back. Said there was something hanging from the mirror, but she couldn't tell what. I already knew. She asked me if it was someone I knew. I lied. I said no. I don't even know why. Maybe I didn't want to freak her out. Maybe I didn't want to admit that Ashley was back in my orbit without ever saying a word. From then on, it got worse. My girlfriend started texting me during work, saying things like she's here again, or that car's back, same spot. She wasn't scared, just annoyed. Thought it was some nosy parent or a neighbor waiting to pick someone up. But I knew. I knew the pattern. That was Ashley's signature move, just being there, quiet, unavoidable, with no explanation. I finally cracked and told my girlfriend who I thought it was. She didn't react how I expected. She got mad, not at Ashley, but at me. She wanted to know why I didn't say anything sooner, why I let it go on without warning her. I didn't have a good answer. I felt stupid, helpless. I didn't have proof. It's not illegal to sit in a car on a public street. We thought about confronting her. We even walked past the car together one day to see who was inside, but the windows were tinted and the car pulled away before we got too close. That was her. Always a step ahead, just far enough away to avoid consequences. Then one day she wasn't outside the office. My girlfriend texted me, "Car's gone," and it stayed gone for almost a week until it showed up somewhere else. We were at a restaurant one night, and I saw the Mazda parked across the street, facing us, not moving, just sitting there. Same dent, same air freshener. It felt like a spotlight aimed right at me. I didn't say anything until after we left, but it ruined the whole night. I kept looking over my shoulder like a movie character waiting to get jumped. A few days later, my girlfriend found a note on her windshield. It was short. No signature. Just said, "Be careful who you trust." That was the moment it all went from creepy to something else. Not a threat exactly, but not innocent either. I told her everything. The gym thing. The online stalking. The random coincidences. She wanted to go to the police, but we didn't have anything. Just a note and a few sightings. They weren't gonna care about an ex parked on a public street, watching someone silently. So instead, we tried to track her. My girlfriend downloaded one of those car plate lookup apps. We even talked to a friend who worked in private security. We were grasping at straws, trying to turn this low-key psychological harassment into something actionable. But nothing ever lined up clean. No license plate photos, no direct interaction, just this constant feeling that we were being monitored. Then, like she always did, Ashley disappeared again. Vanished. The car stopped showing up. No more notes. No more sightings. Like she hit her creepy little quota and went back into hiding. That was months ago, and still, sometimes we see a silver Mazda drive by and both flinch. We both do it now, check the bumper. Look for the skull. Even when it's not her, it still feels like it could be. That's the worst part. Ashley never wanted to yell or break things. She didn't want revenge. She wanted control, and she got it, in the most infuriating, quiet way possible, by making her presence feel like a warning without ever saying a word. Just her being there was enough to make us question everything. Now, every time my girlfriend parks somewhere, she checks her mirrors before getting out. Every time I go to the gym, I scan the lot, just in case. Because once you've had someone haunt your life like that, not with threats or violence, but with silence and headlights, it never really leaves you. It just waits somewhere down the block, engine running, watching. It started with my brother texting me a screenshot with one line. "Do you know this person?" It was a DM from some random account. Looked harmless at first, one of those shady burner profiles with no posts, a blurry photo of what might have been a sunset, and a username that sounded like someone mashed a keyboard. The message said something like, "Hey, didn't expect to see you here," with a dumb little wink emoji. My brother thought it was a scammer. Honestly, I did too for about 5 seconds. Then I looked at who the account was following. Not random influencers or celebrities, just people from my life. Coworkers, high school friends, a few of our cousins. Everyone in the list had some kind of connection to me, not my brother. That's when I felt it in my gut. This wasn't random. This was targeted. I told him to block it and moved on. Or I tried to. 2 days later, he sent me another message. Same account. This one had screenshots. They were cropped tight and looked like a conversation between me and him. Stuff like, "Let's not tell anyone yet," and "You always knew I cared about you." I read it, and I just sat there, stunned. Because even though I never said those things, the messages looked real. My name, my profile pic, same font and everything. Whoever made them knew what they were doing. I didn't even have to think hard about who would go that far. I knew it was Ethan. Ethan and I dated about a year before. At first, he seemed super chill, thoughtful, maybe a little quiet. But later I figured out that was just his way of studying people. He didn't scream or argue. He calculated. He liked control, but he did it quietly, asking loaded questions, playing the victim, pushing just enough to make you doubt yourself. When we broke up, he told me he understood and that he hoped we could be friends again one day. It sounded polite, but the way he said it felt like a warning. I should have blocked him right then, but I didn't. I thought maybe he meant it. So now here I was getting fake screenshots of me hitting on my own brother, Whoever made them had taken old profile photos and pulled messages from years ago. Some real, some completely fake. I remembered one of the lines from a message I sent Ethan forever ago when we were still together, and I saw it twisted in one of the screenshots. Word for word, but with a totally different context. That's how I knew it was him. I started looking closer. That burner account. It wasn't just following people, it was messaging them too. Not just my brother, to friends of mine. Some of them messaged me asking if I was okay. One of them asked why I was being weird. Another said, "Hey, someone's saying some stuff about you. I think it's fake, but you should know." Each message came from a new fake account. Slightly different name, but always the same pattern. No posts, no bio, one vague photo, and always following people around me. That either pretend to flirt or drop fake warnings about me. Stuff like you don't really know him, or he's good at hiding things. A couple even attached more screenshots that were so well made I had to double check my own messages just to be sure. Then it hit my mom. She got a message on Facebook from a totally new profile, different name, different platform, same vibes. This one said, "Your son is hiding something. Ask his brother." No context. Just vague and creepy enough to plant doubt. And it worked. My mom called me that night. She didn't accuse me of anything, but she was nervous. Her voice was shaky, like she wanted to ask questions but didn't know how. That's exactly what Ethan wanted. He didn't need people to believe the lies. He just needed them to wonder. That's when I lost it. Not because he hurt me directly, but because he dragged my family into it. He was using my relationships like puppets in his little theater of chaos. I made a burner account and messaged him. Just one sentence. "You need to stop." His response came almost immediately. "Stop what?" I didn't answer. I blocked him again, and I started locking everything down, new passwords, private accounts, removed old followers, wiped my DNs. I even called a friend of mine who works in digital forensics. He couldn't trace the accounts directly, but he confirmed what I already knew. The pattern matched. Same behaviors, same timing, same links between the accounts. All one person. Ethan. After that, I made a story post just saying, "If you're getting weird messages from fake accounts pretending to be me, don't engage. Report and block. They're fake. I didn't name him. I didn't start drama. I just wanted it to stop." And it did. Slowly. The messages stopped coming. The burner accounts stopped popping up. It was like he got bored when he realized I wasn't playing along. Or maybe he finally moved on to someone else. But the damage stayed. My brother trusts me, but there's still this weird shadow that hangs over us. Like we both know what happened, but we don't talk about it much. It's uncomfortable. My friends laugh about it now, but I still get a jolt every time I get a DN from someone I don't recognize. Every time I see a vague username or a blurry profile picture, I feel my stomach tighten. Because that's what Ethan wanted. Not to hurt me in a big dramatic way, but to leave a permanent crack in the glass. Something I always notice, even when things seemed fine. And he pulled it off. Quietly. Anonymously. With screenshots and fake smiles and burner accounts. No yelling, no fights. Just a ghost in the inbox, making everything feel just a little bit off. Thanksgiving was already chaotic before Amanda decided to drop a psychological nuke on my family. We were at my mom's house, the place was packed, and there were at least 3 people pretending to know how to carve a turkey. The cousins were loud, my uncle was 2 beers away from telling his same conspiracy story for the 5th year in a row, and the oven timer wouldn't stop beeping because my mom said it wrong and refused to admit it. In the middle of all this, my mom suddenly gasped like someone had dropped a baby. Everyone went silent. She was standing in front of the TV, holding her phone, staring at the screen like she'd just seen a ghost. I remember thinking, please don't let it be a medical thing we haven't even eaten yet. Then she looked up at me and said, "Did you have a child and not tell me?" The whole room stopped breathing. I laughed at first, like actually laughed, because what? No, that's not even a question I should have to answer. I said no, obviously, and my mom said, "Then explain this." She turned her phone around and hit play. It was a video posted right to her Facebook wall. Public. Everyone could see it. The caption just said, "Hope this helps clear things up. Happy Thanksgiving." The video was shot in some backyard. Leaves on the ground, birds chirping, overcast sky. A guy about my age stood in front of a tree, holding what looked like a letter in his hands. He was wearing a flannel and had this emotional, half-crying look like he was auditioning for a soap opera. He looked into the camera and said, "Hi. I know this is probably shocking, but I'm your son's child." I was never supposed to know about him, but after years of searching and a DNA test, I finally found him. And I found all of you. Everyone at the table was just staring at me like I'd been hiding a secret child in a storage unit. My cousin stopped mid-bite. My aunt dropped a roll onto the floor. I wanted to sink into the carpet. The guy kept talking in the video. Said he wasn't looking for money, just a chance to connect with his roots. Said he always wanted to know where he came from. And now that I found you, I hope we can build something. Then he ended with, "I love you, Grandpa and Grandma," and waved at the camera. I felt my face burn. My mom looked pale. My sister whispered, "What the hell?" And my uncle finally shut up for the first time in 3 hours. I grabbed the phone and played the video again and again, trying to find something fake in it. Some obvious edit or a clue that it was a prank, but it wasn't. It was a real guy with real tears and a real place saying things that would only make sense if he was actually related to me. Which he wasn't, obviously. It took me about 10 minutes of pacing in the backyard to put the pieces together. Amanda. This had Amanda written all over it. We dated for 6 months, and the first 2 were solid. She was funny, sharp, super social. Then things started getting weird. She was obsessed with how I presented myself online, constantly asking who I followed, why I liked certain posts, even getting mad at me for liking my coworker's dog photo. She had this talent for turning normal things into proof that I was secretly a liar. When we broke up, it wasn't clean. She cried, begged, then flipped the switch and accused me of being cold and manipulative. Then she blocked me everywhere. It ended messy, but not criminal. I didn't think she was dangerous. Just petty. But she'd always been into acting, like deeply into it. She once showed me a bunch of self-tapes she made for auditions and said she'd pay people to read lines with her if she had to. She also used to talk about prank culture like it was an art form. I checked the guy's profile from the video. It was brand new. 2 friends, no posts, just that one video pinned at the top. His name was something generic like Brandon Cole. It looked real enough, but I knew it wasn't. The account had only followed 3 people, my mom, my sister, and Amanda. I texted my sister and told her not to respond to anything and to report the profile. Then I pulled up Amanda's old Venmo, because guess, I still had that bookmarked from when we were splitting bills, and searched for any weird payments. And there it was, a payment to someone named Brandon too. The caption was, "Thanks for your help," with a baby emoji. I almost dropped my phone. Amanda had paid some random actor, probably from Fiverr or a gig app, to film a fake video claiming to be my long-lost child. Then she posted it directly to my mom's Facebook wall during Thanksgiving dinner. It wasn't even a private message or an anonymous email. It was public. She wanted everyone to see it. She wanted chaos. I didn't even reach out to her. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction. Instead, I helped my mom report the video and get it removed. My uncle called it some weird Gen Z thing and tried to laugh it off, but the damage was done. Everyone at dinner looked at me differently for the rest of the night. No matter how much I explained it was fake, there was still this weird tension, like they weren't sure if I was being totally honest. A few days later, Amanda texted me from a new number. Just said, "Hope you're doing great. You always talked about wanting kids." That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just that creepy little nudge to let me know she got in my head again. I blocked the number and haven't heard from her since, but the story stuck. My family still brings it up every now and then, usually with a joke like, "Any new kids we should know about?" And every Thanksgiving, my mom changes her Facebook privacy settings just in case. What gets me isn't just the prank. It's how calculated it was. Amanda didn't scream at me or try to ruin my stuff. She planned a fake person, hired someone, wrote a script, timed it for Thanksgiving. She didn't want revenge. She wanted to humiliate me in front of the people who trusted me the most. And it worked at least for a little while. Even now, sometimes I get nervous when someone tags me in a video or when my mom says she got a message from someone she doesn't know. That tiny part of me wonders if Amanda is still out there scripting the next round, just waiting for another holiday. I remember the exact moment I found out. I was in the office kitchen, standing next to the busted coffee machine that only worked when you hit it like a vending machine from the 90s. A coworker walked in, holding his phone, and said, "Dude, are you okay?" I had no idea what he was talking about, so I just blinked at him and waited. Then he showed me the email. The subject line said goodbye. The sender was me, or at least it looked like it was from me. The message had been sent to our entire department. All 42 people, our boss, the HR lead, even a couple people from other branches. The email said I was quitting, that I couldn't keep lying to everyone anymore, that I was burned out from pretending. The tone was weirdly poetic, dramatic, like it was written by someone trying too hard to sound deep. My name was at the bottom. My email signature, too. It looked real. Except I didn't write it. I didn't even know it had been sent until my coworker showed me. That's when my stomach dropped. The timing was so specific it was almost impressive. It was a Thursday morning. We had a company-wide meeting scheduled in 2 hours. My boss was already on edge about budget cuts, and people were whispering about layoffs. So when they saw a farewell letter from me in their inbox, everyone believed it. I ran to my desk, pulled up my email, and scrolled. Nothing in my sent folder. But the message was real. People were replying to it. Some said things like, "We'll miss you." Others asked if I was okay. A few even offered to write me recommendations. I sat there frozen while my inbox filled up with reactions to a resignation I didn't make. It didn't take long to figure out who it was. Logan. He was the kind of ex who didn't scream or block you. He vanished. Disappeared like a puff of smoke, but in a way that made you feel like you were the one who messed up. We dated for about a year. At first, it was great. He was funny, charming, the type of guy who always had some wild story. But as time went on, the stories got darker. He liked pushing buttons. Not violently, but emotionally. He'd say stuff that sounded nice on the surface, but had barbed wire underneath. When we broke up, it wasn't loud. It was just empty. He stopped replying to texts, didn't show up to plans. And one day I realized he just ghosted me. Full silent treatment. I was mad, yeah, but I didn't chase him. I let him go. Or so I thought. A few months after the breakup, I heard from someone in my building that Logan was working nearby, like a few blocks away. I didn't think much of it. I figured we'd just avoid each other, keep it grown up. But apparently Logan had other ideas. I later found out he'd gotten a job at the same company as me. Not the same department, not even the same floor, but the same building, same email domain. He never once said a word, never acknowledged me. Didn't like any of my posts, didn't make eye contact when we passed each other in the elevator. He was invisible, or at least he pretended to be. That's what made it so creepy. He waited, bided his time, didn't mess with me for months. Just worked quietly in the background, close enough to see me, far enough to not raise alarm. Until the email. I don't know how he got into my account. It said there was no breach, no suspicious activity. But Logan knew my habits. He knew my old passwords. He probably guessed the one I was still using. That was on me. I should have changed it. But it never occurred to me that someone would go that far. The email itself was brutal. It talked about me feeling like a fraud, about not being able to keep up the act. It mentioned regret and shame like it was some kind of journal entry. It even threw in a line about how I felt isolated and afraid to admit the truth. I had people pulling me aside all day. Some were supportive. Others kept their distance like I was radioactive. HR called me in for a meeting. My boss asked if I needed time off. It was a mess. And the whole time, I was sitting there trying to explain that I didn't write it, that it was fake, that someone else had done it as a sick joke. But it was hard to prove. The message didn't break any rules. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't even mean. It was just believable. That was the genius of it. Logan didn't want to destroy me. He wanted to quietly unravel my credibility. After hours of trying to track it, someone from IT noticed the message had been sent from an internal IP that didn't match my device. That's when things started clicking into place. They cross-checked employee logins and found one from Logan's desk that matched the timestamp. That was the only proof I needed. I didn't talk to him. I didn't go storming into his office or try to get revenge. I went straight to HR. Chilled in everything. They were quiet for a while, and then they told me Logan was being terminated immediately. Violated privacy, impersonated another employee, caused reputational damage. Done. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I didn't. I was too tired. I just wanted him gone. After he left, things settled down. People eventually stopped asking questions. The email became office lore, one of those weird stories that gets passed around during happy hours. Remember that guy who fake quit through a dramatic email? People laugh about it now, but at the time, it nearly wrecked my standing at work. I changed all my passwords, got rid of anything that could be guessed, started logging out of everything the second I left my desk, but that anxiety stuck with me. For weeks after, I kept checking my email every morning with this pit in my stomach, wondering if someone had sent another fake message, wondering if my name had been used again. The thing about Logan is he didn't need to yell or leave a trail. He just needed one moment, one trick, and he pulled it off perfectly. He wrote something in my voice that felt just real enough to mess with people's heads. He didn't destroy my life. He just twisted it sideways for a while, and that was enough for him. That's what scares me most, not the loud ones. The quiet ones who wait, watch, and then strike with a sentence. It was a random Tuesday when my phone blew up with "I'm so sorry" texts. At first, I thought someone I knew had died, like actually died. The kind of sudden messages where people don't ask questions. They just send love. The weird part was they were all from people I hadn't talked to in years. Old high school friends, my college roommate, even a guy I used to work with for one summer at a frozen yogurt shop. Every single message said something like, "Just heard about what happened. Thinking of you." I had no clue what they were talking about. Then my cousin sent me a link, just a plain message. "Is this for real?" No explanation. I clicked it. It was a blog. White background, generic layout, and a header that read "Life after / my name." Right under that was the subheading, "Surviving the sudden loss of someone who hurt me." I felt this weird static in my head, like I was trying to read a language I knew, but something wasn't adding up. I scrolled down and there it was. A blog post dated that morning titled, "You're gone and I still have questions." The post started with a line that made my stomach drop. I never thought I'd have to write this, but the man who broke my heart is gone forever. Gone forever. That's what she wrote. It kept going. She talked about grief, about unanswered apologies, and how he left this world never knowing the pain he caused. It was dramatic, the kind of writing that makes you feel like you're interrupting something personal. She said things like he wasn't perfect, but he was mine once. And even when he hurt me, I still loved him. It wasn't just about loss. It was about me. She described our relationship, our breakup, things only someone close would know. That's when it clicked. Brittany. We dated for a year and a half. She was emotional. That's the nice way to say it. Passionate one minute, cold the next. She lived in extremes. Everything was either the best day ever or, "How could you do this to me?" When we broke up, it was messy. She accused me of things I didn't do, tried to make me jealous by dating someone I knew, and would randomly call me crying at 2 a.m. for months after. Eventually, she disappeared, deleted me, blocked me. I figured she was finally moving on. She didn't. I started calming through the blog. Every post was about me. Not by name, but obviously me. She described where I worked, how we met, what were the first time we went out. She told the story of our relationship, but through this distorted lens where I was some tragic figure who never learned how to love right. She even wrote about how I ghosted her, which wasn't true at all. I broke up with her in person after weeks of trying to make things work. But the wildest part, she wrote the entire blog as if I was dead. Each post talked about me in the past tense. He used to say this, he never realized how much I cared. If I could talk to him one last time. Like I had dropped dead out of nowhere and now she was working through the grief. I thought, okay, maybe this is her twisted way of processing. Creepy, yeah, but not dangerous. Then I saw the comments. People believed it. There were actual comments from strangers saying things like, "So sorry for your loss, and you're so strong for speaking your truth." Some of them were clearly her friends, mutuals I recognized, and none of them were questioning the story. Nomi was saying, "Wait, isn't he alive?" They were just mourning, crying with her, sharing stories of their own losses, feeding the whole lie. I checked my social media. Everything was normal. My profiles were still up. I posted just a few days ago. But none of that mattered. She didn't need me to disappear online. She created a separate world where I didn't exist anymore, and people bought into it. Then she started boosting the blog. I got a notification that someone had tagged my hometown's community page in a post. I clicked it. It was her blog. She paid for it to show up in sponsored ads. Ads that said, a story of love, loss, and emotional survival. Right there in between car dealership coupons and school board announcements was a link to a fake obituary. My aunt called me in tears. She thought I'd been in an accident. My coworker messaged me asking if everything was okay at home. One guy I hadn't seen since high school sent me a voice memo that literally just said, I hope you're at peace, man. I had to start telling people I wasn't dead, over and over, like some reverse ghost. The more I explained, the worse it sounded. No, I'm not dead. My ex just made a blog pretending I died because she was mad I broke up with her. Try saying that without sounding insane. Eventually, I made a public post. I screenshot part of the blog, added a caption that said, to be clear, I'm alive. Someone I used to date is posting lies. Please don't believe them. I felt stupid doing it, like I was feeding into the drama, but people needed to know. She didn't stop, though. New posts kept popping up, all in the same tone. Sometimes I forget you're gone. Your absence is louder than your presence ever was. She even wrote a post titled, His laugh still echoes in my ears. It was like she was performing grief, romanticizing it, making herself the main character in a story where I was a tragic ending. I tried reporting the blog, but nothing happened. It wasn't harassment, technically. She didn't use my full name. She didn't threaten me. She just wrote about her dead ex like it was some sad novel. Eventually, people stopped asking. The blog kept going, but the buzz died down. I don't think she ever admitted it was fake. She just kept writing, kept pretending I was a ghost in her life. The whole thing messed with my head. I started getting anxious whenever someone looked at me too long in public, like maybe they were recognizing me from the blog. I felt like I was constantly explaining myself. No, really, I'm alive. It's just my ex. She's dramatic. Even now, sometimes I wonder if she's still updating it. Still writing chapters in her fantasy where I'm buried somewhere, and she's the grieving lover who was never understood. I haven't checked in months. I don't want to. Because the scariest part wasn't the blog itself. It was how easy it was to convince people I was dead. One fake post, a couple of vague details, and suddenly I was gone. Just a memory. A story for someone else to tell however they wanted. It started with a red flag at the check-in desk. I scanned my gym card like I always did, waited for the low green light, and instead got a confused look from the new girl working the counter. She typed something, paused, looked at me again, then said, Sorry, it says here your account's been flagged. You might need to talk to a supervisor before working out. I laughed, thinking maybe it was a billing issue or a mistake. I pay my membership like clockwork, same card every month. Never missed a payment. But then the manager came over, pulled me aside, and started speaking in this quiet, awkward voice like she was trying not to spook me. We had a report about a medical issue related to your heart. A family member said you have a known condition that could make exercise dangerous. For liability reasons, we're required to flag your account until we get a release form from your doctor. I stood there trying to figure out if I was being punked. I don't have any heart condition. I've never had one. I've run half marathons. I've lifted weights for years. I'm literally healthier than I've ever been. But somehow, someone had convinced my gym that I was one workout away from dropping dead on the rowing machine. At first, I was just confused. Who would even say that? How would they know where I work out? I figured maybe someone used my name by accident. Maybe there was another guy with the same last name. But the more I thought about it, the more it started to click. The gym. The story. The weird medical twist. The exact kind of thing someone would do if they wanted to mess with me without actually getting caught. That's when Kyle came to mind. We dated for a while, almost a year. He was charming in that everything's fine until it isn't kind of way. Always smiling, always planning things. But underneath it, there was this streak of control. He liked to know what I was doing at all times, who I was with, what I ate. He didn't say it like that, but it showed. He had a way of twisting things. If I went to the gym late, he'd say he was just worried about me pushing myself too hard. If I mentioned being tired, he'd suggest maybe I had something undiagnosed. He once told me I looked gray after a run and made me sit down and check my pulse. When we broke up, it was weird. No yelling, no huge drama. Just a slow unraveling. But he didn't take it well. Sent a few messages about how I was making a mistake and that he hoped I didn't do anything reckless. At the time, I figured he just meant emotionally. I didn't realize he meant it in a literal, creepy way. The gym situation got worse. After the first conversation, they wouldn't let me back in. Not until I got a signed note from a doctor saying I was medically cleared for exercise. I called my primary care, explained everything, and he laughed out loud. Said there was absolutely nothing in my file that would ever justify that kind of restriction. But rules were rules. I had to get an official letter just to prove I wasn't about to keel over from jogging. I started asking questions. Who submitted the report? How did they even phrase it? The front desk manager couldn't give me a name, but she said it came through someone claiming to be a family member. A cousin, apparently. Said they were deeply concerned and didn't want to see me get hurt. It was written in this professional tone, like someone pretending to be a medical student. Full of vague phrases like unstable cardiac function and genetic predisposition to arrhythmias. I was furious, not just because it was insane, but because it worked. Kyle had planted this lie in a way that sounded just real enough to trigger panic. The gym had to act on it. They couldn't take the risk, even though it was complete fiction. I called him. I don't know why I did it. I knew he wouldn't admit anything, but I needed to hear his voice. I needed to know for sure. When he picked up, he sounded casual. Too casual. I asked him straight up if he contacted my gym. There was a pause, and then he said, "That's a really serious accusation. Are you okay?" That's what I knew. The fake concern, the tone, the way he twisted it back on me. He never confessed. Of course not. But that phone call confirmed everything. He said, "You've always pushed yourself a little too hard. Maybe this is the universe telling you to slow down." And then he hung up. After I got the doctor's note and was finally allowed back in, it still didn't feel normal. I felt watched. I kept wondering if the trainer who spotted me on the bench press thought I was some kind of medical liability. Like any minute, I might faint or clutch my chest and make a scene. The gym didn't apologize. They couldn't. They were just doing their job. I started going at different hours, stopped posting workout stuff online, removed my location from stories, just in case, because now I knew Kyle wasn't above using whatever detail he still remembered about me and mess with my life. A few weeks later, I found out from a mutual friend that Kyle had started working out at a different gym. The same chain, different location. Not long after that, another trainer at my spot mentioned that someone had asked about my condition. Just casually, like they were concerned. It didn't give a name, but I already knew. I changed gyms. Again, different chain this time. Different side of town. I didn't post about it. I didn't even tell most of my friends. I just wanted one place that didn't see me as a liability. What Kyle did wasn't flashy. He didn't show up at my door or send threats. He just planted a lie and let it grow. He took the one thing that gave me peace, the gym, and turned it into a place where I felt judged and restricted. He made me feel like I had to defend my own health to strangers. And the worst part, he never got caught, never even admitted it. He just watched from the sidelines and smiled like he did it for my own good. Now, every time I fill out a health form at a gym or a sports event, I hesitate. I wonder if someone's going to come out of nowhere and say I don't belong there, that I'm not safe, that I'm not okay. All because one person decided that if he couldn't control me emotionally, he'd try to control me physically, quietly, invisibly, and it worked for a little while. But now, every time I set foot in a gym, I bring that letter with me, folded in my bag, just in case someone believes the lie before they believe me. I got dressed up for a job interview that didn't exist. Suit jacket, button down, clean shave, fresh haircut, the whole thing. I even showed up 15 minutes early like a responsible adult. Sat in the lobby of this boutique marketing firm downtown, resume folder in hand, going over fake talking points in my head for a position I had never applied for. It didn't hit me until about 30 minutes after my scheduled time that I'd been played. But not just played, watched. The building had this coffee shop across the street with big open windows. I didn't notice it at first. I was too busy trying not to sweat through my shirt while pretending to read an old email thread on my phone. But when I finally gave up and stepped out, there she was. Emily. Sitting inside, sipping an iced coffee, one leg crossed over the other, holding her phone like she was filming me. We locked eyes. She smiled, waved, not in a cute or flirty way, but in this smug, I win kind of way. Then looked down at her screen like the show was over. She didn't even try to hide it. That's when the embarrassment hit. Not just because I've fallen for it, but because it was so perfectly targeted. She knew I was looking for new work. I'd mentioned it on my stories, even posted a rant about how terrible the job market was. She must have used that to her advantage, posing as a recruiter or HR rep to schedule a fake interview. It was like watching someone rob you with a smile on their face. The night before, I got an email from what looked like a real company, legit address, company logo, all the usual HR lingo. They said they saw my resume on LinkedIn and wanted to set up a quick interview for a marketing role I didn't remember applying to, but that wasn't weird. I'd sent out so many resumes that month, I figured it was just one I forgot about. The email even included a calendar invite and office address. It all checked out, nothing sketchy, no red flags. Until I showed up and realized nobody in the building knew who I was or why I was there. The receptionist gave me this confused look like I was selling something. I showed her the email and she asked me to wait. 10 minutes later, she came back with a manager who told me, nicely, that they weren't hiring for any position like that. Never had been. I left feeling like I was in a prank video, like someone was about to jump out and yell, "Gotcha." But nobody did, just Emily across the street, sipping her coffee like she was watching a live stream of karma. Emily and I had dated for 8 months. We met through friends, hit it off fast, and it felt fun until it didn't. She had this intensity about her. She wanted to be involved in every part of my life, my schedule, my friends, even my work. If I didn't text her back in under 5 minutes, I'd get messages followed by emotional paragraphs about feeling ignored. If I had a meeting, she'd accuse me of lying. She once asked to see my phone because she thought my work calendar was fake. Looking back, I should have ended it earlier. But you always think people will cool down. They don't. After we broke up, she told me she understood. Said she hoped we could both grow and move forward. Then she unfollowed me on everything and I figured we were done. Until the fake job interview. I texted her later that night. I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help myself. I just said, "What was that?" She replied instantly, "Hope you nailed it." Then a laughing emoji. That was it. No denial. No pretending. Just pure, uncut satisfaction. She wanted me to know it was her. She wanted credit. What messed with me most was how far she went to make it work. That email wasn't thrown together. She copied the layout of a real company, matched the tone of HR communication, and even linked to a fake scheduling portal that looked just like the real thing. I double-checked everything afterward. She cloned it all, probably used an email generator and a free trial from some CRM software, just to make it look authentic. She wanted me to get dressed, get excited, mentally prepare, and then fall flat on my face. And I did. After that, I started second-guessing everything. I had to change all my job alert settings, tighten up my accounts, and triple-check every email that came through. If a recruiter messaged me, I'd Google the hell out of their name. I even called one to make sure he was real. I couldn't afford to get humiliated like that again. Some of my friends laughed when I told them. Not in a mean way, just shocked that someone would actually go to that length. "She had a fake job," one of them said. "Damn, that's next level petty." I didn't laugh. I just felt gross. Because it wasn't just about making me look dumb. It was about control. She knew how much stress I was under, how desperate I was for a new gig, and she used that to create the perfect trap. I blocked her on everything, even changed my number. But part of me still wonders if she's watching from somewhere, if she still checks my posts, waiting for another opportunity to strike. I don't post about work anymore. Don't talk about interviews online. If I land a new job, I don't share the details. I keep it quiet, private, safe. Because now I know what it feels like to walk into a building thinking your life is about to change, only to realize you were just part of someone else's twisted little show. And the worst part, she didn't even need to scream or key my car or trash my stuff. She just needed Wi-Fi and a little imagination. It was a photo that tipped me off. Not even a new one. Just an old group shot from my birthday 2 years ago that someone reshared on their story. The kind of harmless memory you barely notice. Except this time, something was off. I was tagged in it, but when I looked, the name wasn't mine. The tag that used to lead to my profile now led to someone else's. Same first name, same spelling, but not me. It didn't make sense at first. I clicked the profile, expecting maybe it was just someone with the same name and the app glitched. But then I saw her face. A girl I'd never met, standing in front of the same background I once stood in, except now she was tagged in every photo that used to have me. I checked Snack's profile, and there it was, a curated mess. Post after post, all from when we were together, but with her name where mine used to be. She wasn't in the photos. She hadn't been there, but she was tagged like she had. It was like someone had swapped me out with a body double and hoped nobody would notice. People noticed. They just didn't say anything. I started going through his profile like I was looking for evidence. Photo from our weekend trip to the lake, her tag, picture of the Halloween party where we dressed up as a pun costume. Her again. Even photos that had my face clearly in them, where you could obviously tell it was me. He had replaced my name with hers. She even commented under some of them like she remembered being there. Inside jokes. Quotes that I had said. It was like she was reenacting my role with lines she barely rehearsed. Zach and I had broken up maybe 8 months earlier. It wasn't explosive. Just one of those things that slowly stops working. We didn't fight. We didn't ghost. We had one final conversation, and that was it. We didn't talk after that. No texts, no stalking. We weren't even blocked, just done, so I thought. Seeing this girl tagged in all my old memories felt like walking into your house and finding your furniture rearranged, your photos replaced, and someone else living in your skin. And the worst part was her name. Same as mine. That couldn't be a coincidence. There are thousands of names out there. He found someone with mine, dated her, and started retrofitting her into the past we used to share. He wasn't just moving on. He was rewriting. Editing the timeline like I was a bad draft, and she was the published version. I messaged a friend we had in common and asked, "Have you seen Zach's feed lately?" She just said, "Yeah, that's been going on for a while. It's weird." That's it. No shock. No outrage. Just acceptance, like people had noticed and shrugged it off. So I posted one of the original photos. Me and Zach on the rooftop, grinning with takeout containers in our laps, city lights behind us. No caption. Just posted it. No tag. But people remembered. I started getting DMs almost instantly. Some asking what happened. Some laughing. One person sent, "Wait, I thought that was his new girlfriend in that pic on his feed." Exactly. He must have seen it too, because 2 days later I got a message from him. The first one in nearly a year. It said, "Hey, I thought we weren't going to do this." That was all. No context. No explanation. Just a vague little guilt trip, like I had somehow invaded his privacy by reclaiming my own face from a photo he tried to rewrite. I didn't reply. After that, a few of the edited posts started disappearing, quietly. No mass deletion, no apology. Just a slow fade of anything that could cause problems, but not all of them. Some stayed. Some were still tagged with her name, still full of comments like, "You guys were always perfect together." She played along too. Whether she knew the history or not, she was deep in the act. Still liking posts. Still leaving comments like, "Oh, I remember this day," on pictures from 2 years before she even met him. It was a performance, and everyone watching just went along with it. What bothered me most wasn't even Zach. It was how easily everyone accepted the switch. People who'd been there. People who knew I was the one in the photos. Nobody called it out. Nobody said, "Hey, isn't that someone else?" Because online, memory is flexible. People just go with whatever version shows up on their feed. I stopped looking after a while. I had to. It was making me paranoid. Every time someone posted an old photo, I braced myself for a new tag swap. Every time someone brought up a memory from that time, I wondered which version they remembered, the real one or the one he built with his replacement. And honestly, it made me feel disposable, like I could be edited out of someone's life with just a few clicks, like my presence in his life was optional, something he could revise at will. It made me question how real it ever was if it could be replaced so easily. I talked to a therapist about it once, and she said it was about control. That people like Zach don't always want to process things. They just want to reshape them into something easier, cleaner, something where they never have to admit they lost something. So instead of letting go, he rewrote me. She said, "That's not a reflection of you. That's his inability to deal with reality." It helped, a little. But I still think about it. Not every day. Not like he used to. But sometimes when I see a photo tagged wrong, when someone brings up that time we all went to that music festival, when I hear someone mention a couple that seemed so happy. Because I was there. I remember it. I remember what really happened. I remember being in the photos before someone decided to replace my name with hers and pretend I was never there at all. It started with an ad, not a billboard or a flyer, but a sponsored blog post that popped up while I was scrolling on my phone during a boring afternoon at work. It looked like one of those emotional breakup articles with a stock photo of someone crying at a window. The title said something like, "Finding Myself After the Storm," and underneath it, a tagline, "A story about rebuilding life after emotional ruin." I almost didn't click it, but then I saw the name. Not my full name, but just enough. My first name. A reference to the town I grew up in. Some very specific details only someone who knew me closely would know. And the blog's name. That's what made me stop breathing for a second. It was called Life After Zed, which is my name. It didn't look like a blog made in a rush. It was polished. There were graphics, soft colors, custom fonts. Every post had a little quote banner at the top. It looked like something that belonged on Pinterest. I clicked on the first entry, and it hit me like a punch in the chest. She was telling a story, a dramatic, deeply emotional saga about a relationship that broke her down mentally, spiritually, physically. And it was about me. Except it wasn't. Not really. It was some alternate universe version of our relationship where I was the villain in a slow burn psychological thriller. She described gaslighting, emotional starvation, and being reduced to nothing but a shell of who she once was. It was all very poetic, very carefully worded, and almost none of it was true. I scrolled through more entries. There were over 30. Each one was another chapter in the story of how I had supposedly destroyed her. She had clever names for them like the paper mirror and when he stopped being kind. She referenced real things we'd done together. A trip to the mountains, the time we adopted a cat, the fight we had over her going through my messages. But every story was retold through this distorted filter where I was manipulative, selfish, cold, and calculated. It was bizarre because I remember those moments too. I remembered apologizing for that argument, even when she was the one who went through my phone without asking. I remembered how she used to cry and then accuse me of not comforting her correctly. I remembered walking on eggshells for months. But now in this blog, I was the bad guy in every memory. And worse, people were reading it. There were comments on every post. Strangers saying, "I see you," and he sounds like a narcissist. Others shared their own stories. A few even said things like, "I know who this is about. I went to high school with him." That one sent a chill through my spine. It wasn't just a blog anymore. It was a campaign. I found out later she was boosting the posts with ad money. Not a ton, but enough to push them into certain people's social media feeds. My old classmates, people from my neighborhood. She targeted the zip code we grew up in. The people who knew me but hadn't talked to me in years. The ones who wouldn't question her side of the story. Soon I was getting texts from people I hadn't heard from in forever. One said, "Are you okay?" Another just said, "I didn't know all that stuff happened." I didn't know how to respond. Actually, none of it happened. She made up a fake reality to cope with a breakup. It all sounded insane when I said it out loud. I thought about confronting her, but I already knew how that would go. If I messaged her, she'd spin that into another entry. When he tried to silence me. If I tried to report the blog, I'd have to prove it was fake. But she was smart. She never used my full name. She never said where I worked or posted a photo of me. She left just enough out to stay legally safe, but still tell everyone exactly who she was talking about. And the worst part, people believed her because she was consistent. She posted every week like it was her job. Shared healing tips and journal prompts. Were about how hard it was to leave me. How love can feel like poison when it's slowly killing you. And people ate it up. They thanked her. Called her brave. Brave. She had basically built an online altar to the worst version of me that never existed, and somehow she was being celebrated for it. I tried to ignore it. I muted people, hid the posts, but the damage was done. I could feel it every time I walked into a bar and someone looked at me a little too long. Every time someone gave me a weird half smile and said, "How have you been holding up?" Like they were waiting for me to crack. Eventually, the blog hit the local scene. Someone from a small independent paper picked it up as a viral local story of survival. They interviewed her. She didn't name me, but she repeated all the worst stuff. Said she was speaking for all the people who'd been through similar pain and couldn't find the words. Said she was doing it to heal. And maybe she was. Maybe in her mind she really believed all had happened the way she wrote it. Maybe that's how she processed the break. I don't know. I stopped trying to understand it because it made me feel like I was going crazy. The blog's still up. She updates less often now, but the posts are still there, floating around like scars I didn't make. People still message me sometimes. A few apologize for assuming. A few accuse me of things I've never done. But most don't say anything. They just remember the version of me that she invented. I thought about making my own blog. Telling my side. Setting the record straight. But I know how it would look. Man defends himself against abuse allegations isn't a headline people want to read. It doesn't win sympathy. It just makes you look guilty, even if you're not. So I moved on the only way I could. I stopped explaining. I stopped reading. I changed jobs. I got off most social media. The people who know me know the truth. The ones who don't, they can believe whatever version helps them sleep. And sometimes when I can't sleep, I think about how easy it is to ruin someone without ever touching them. You don't need a weapon. You just need a blog, a little free time, and the confidence that nobody will question your story if it's told well enough. It was a Sunday when my mom called me, which was already weird because she usually texts. Even weirder, she sounded out of breath and way too cheerful for someone who hates small talk. She said she'd just read the paper and was so proud of me. I asked why. She said, for that generous donation, of course. I had no idea what she was talking about. Then she read it to me. It was a letter to the editor from a local organization. One of those controversial fringe groups that always gets people arguing in comment sections. It was a thank you note for a large donation from /my name, with a short paragraph of appreciation and a printed scan of what looked like a handwritten note from me. Except I never wrote that letter, and I never gave them a cent. I told her it wasn't real. She didn't believe me at first, thought maybe I was being modest, but I knew exactly who was behind it before she even finished reading. Jake. We'd been over for a while at that point, almost a year, and for most of that year I thought he was done. There were a few petty moments after we broke up, liking old photos of my friends, sending me a song I knew he meant as a guilt trip, but nothing too wild. And this happened, and I realized he'd just been waiting. I didn't even live in my hometown anymore, but Jake knew I still cared about how people saw me there. My family still lived there, and it's a small town, where reputations linger like fog. He knew exactly what he was doing. I tracked down a copy of the paper, flipped straight to the letter section, and there it was. We'd like to publicly thank /my name for their recent pledge to support our mission. It named the exact amount, $500, and had a whole paragraph about how meaningful the gesture was coming from someone in my age group. Then at the bottom was the handwritten note. It wasn't actually in my handwriting, but it was close. You could tell someone tried to fake it. It said, keep standing up for what's right. We need more truth in the world. Truth. That word made me want to throw the whole paper in the trash. I called the organization, told them I never donated, and they said the pledge came through a mailed form. No online trail, just a printed form with my name, an old address I hadn't used in 2 years, and a fake signature. I asked if they had proof of the donation itself, and they admitted they hadn't actually received the money yet, just the promise. They'd published the thank you as a preemptive show of appreciation. So basically, Jake had mailed in a fake donation form pretending to be me, knowing they'd shout it out before the money arrived. It was sneaky, low effort, and completely effective. I didn't bother trying to explain it to the town. What was I gonna do? Publish a rebuttal in the same paper. Actually, I didn't give that group any money. It was my ex trying to make me look like a lunatic. No one was going to buy that. It sounded paranoid. It sounded like exactly the kind of thing someone guilty would say. I didn't even have proof that Jake did it. I just knew. He had this thing about controlling the narrative. During our relationship, if we argued and someone else was around, he changed his tone mid-sentence to make me look like the one overreacting. He once told his mom I struggled with honesty because I forgot to mention an old friend texted me. He was that type. Subtle, strategic, dangerous in a calm voice. I tried to move past it, but then it happened again. Different organization, different donation. This one even messier. It was a group with even more controversy attached. the kind of people who protest schools and picket community events. The letter was shorter, but it was still there. This time it was just my name listed on their donor list in small print on their website. I emailed them directly, and they removed it after I told them it was fraud. But that didn't undo the damage. Someone had already seen it and screenshotted it. Sent it to my boss. Sent it to my college friends. One guy from my old class messaged me, "You're full on unrecognizable now." I didn't even respond. It wasn't just about the donations. It was about planting the idea that I supported these groups. That I was one of those people. That was the worst part. He wasn't shouting lies. He was suggesting them. Whispering just loud enough that other people would do the shouting for him. I started getting weird messages on social media. People asking if I'd changed politically. Someone asked if I was part of some movement I'd never heard of. A girl I dated briefly unmatched me after sending one final message. "I just don't vibe with hate." All because my ex forged my name on a couple of paper forms and mailed them off with a fake thank you note. I went to a lawyer again, and like every time you try to legally fight something just annoying enough to ruin your life, but not serious enough to be criminal, it basically said, "It's complicated. I'd have to prove Jake did it." The organizations wouldn't release mailing details without a court order. Even then, unless he signed the form with his name somewhere, it'd be hard to link him. It would cost more than I could afford, and the fallout would keep getting worse while I waited. So I did what I could. I changed my contact info across the board, locked down all of my profiles, started checking every public record with my name on it, set up Google alerts for myself. That felt humiliating, like I was famous for all the wrong reasons, like I had to monitor the news in case someone posted another fake thank you. He hasn't pulled anything else since. Maybe he got bored, or maybe he's planning the next thing. I don't know. But every time I get a weird email or someone tags me in something political, my stomach knots up. And every time I think about what he did, what makes me the angriest is how easy it was. He didn't need to hack me. Didn't need to post anything nasty online. He just printed out a form, mailed it, and let the world assume I meant it. He knew my name could carry something I never signed up for. And now I'll always wonder how many more people out there think I'm someone I never was, because someone who once claimed to love me decided to weaponize my signature. It started with a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I was half asleep, still in bed, and I let it go to voicemail. I figured it was a spam call or maybe a pharmacy reminder. A couple hours later, I checked the message. It was a guy with a monotone voice saying, "This is a courtesy call from Midland Financial Services regarding an unpaid balance from your account." Then he listed my full name, said my account had been flagged for collections, and gave me a reference number. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it felt so random. I've never had debt collectors come after me. My credit's clean. I pay my bills, but the guy knew my full name and my old address, which made it feel more real than your average scam. Still, I shrugged it off. Thought maybe someone had used my info by accident. Then more calls came in, emails too. Not scams, real agencies. They all had my name, my birth date, a mailing address I hadn't used in over 2 years. All saying the same thing. Credit card accounts opened under my name, past due balances, notices of delinquency. Every email and voicemail made it sound more urgent. One said they'd started escalating the account. Another one said a final notice had been issued. That's when I stopped laughing. I ordered a credit report. Took forever to load, and I was nervous the whole time. When I finally saw it, my stomach dropped. There were 5 credit cards I didn't recognize, all opened in the last 6 months, all under my name, all connected to that old apartment address I'd lived in when I was with Nicole. That's when it clicked. Nicole and I didn't end explosively. We had a slow breakup, the kind where every conversation starts to feel like a performance. We had different priorities, different ways of seeing the world. She thought I was too laid back. I thought she was too intense. Eventually, we stopped trying. I moved out, and we agreed to stay on good terms, whatever that means. I left that apartment with my name still on some of the mail. I told her I'd change everything over once I got settled, and for a while, I believed we were cool. She even messaged me a couple months after, said she'd still been getting letters from me, and I thanked her. That was the last time we talked. Apparently, she kept getting more than letters. She had enough of my old mail to know my full name, date of birth, and all the usual info companies ask for when you apply for a card. And since the mail kept coming to her address, she could use it to verify things. She never actually used the cards. That's what made it hard to trace. She didn't go on a shopping spree. She didn't rack up charges on random Amazon stuff or book flights to Bali. She just opened the accounts and let them sit. Until they didn't. After a few months, the company started mailing to collect payment. First to her address. Then they tracked down my current info. And by then, the accounts were in default. My credit score dropped like a rock. I went from the green zone to the red in less than a month. I was pissed, but I was also stuck. Because what do you even do in that situation? Go to the police and say, hey, my ex didn't steal anything, but she did open credit cards in my name and ignore them just long enough to destroy my financial future. It sounds like something from a bad soap opera. I called her. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail. Calm, direct, just asking if she knew anything about it. No threats, no anger. Just trying to confirm what I already knew. She texted back 2 days later. I don't know what you're talking about. That was it. I followed up with, I have a credit report saying otherwise. Can we talk? She blocked me. It started with a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I was half asleep, still in bed, and I let it go to voicemail. I figured it was a spam call or maybe a pharmacy reminder. A couple hours later, I checked the message. It was a guy with a monotone voice saying, this is a courtesy call from Midland Financial Services regarding an unpaid balance from your account. Then he listed my full name, said my account had been flagged for collections, and gave me a reference number. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt so random. I've never had debt collectors come after me. My credit's clean. I pay my bills, but the guy knew my full name and my old address, which made it feel more real than your average scam. Still, I shrugged it off. Thought maybe someone had used my info by accident. I filed a fraud report with each credit card company. It took forever. I had to mail in proof of identity, copies of my lease showing I no longer lived at that address, and letters explaining the situation. I had to swear under penalty of perjury that I didn't open those accounts. Some companies believed me and removed the accounts. Others didn't. One told me the applications had been verified with sufficient documentation and refused to budge. Every phone call with them felt like begging. Like I was pleading not to be punished for something I didn't do. I kept thinking about how easy it was for her to do it. Just a few forms, a few clicks, and I was spending months trying to undo it. I filed a fraud report with each credit card company. It took forever. I had to mail in proof of identity, copies of my lease showing I no longer lived at that address, and letters explaining the situation. I had to swear under penalty of perjury that I didn't open those accounts. Some companies believed me and removed the accounts. Others didn't. One told me the applications had been verified with sufficient documentation and refused to budge. Every phone call with them felt like begging. Like I was pleading not to be punished for something I didn't do. I kept thinking about how easy it was for her to do it. Just a few forms, a few clicks, and now I was spending months trying to undo it. And for what? She didn't even get anything from it. No shopping spree, no payout. She just let the debt rot until it found its way to me, like she wanted to haunt me financially. Friends I told about it were shocked at first, and they moved on. A few of them joked about it. One said, that's the most passive-aggressive revenge I've ever heard of. Another said, at least she didn't burn your stuff. I laughed with them, but inside I was just exhausted. Every time I checked my credit score and saw the damage, I remembered that text. I don't know what you're talking about. Eventually, I had to put a freeze on my credit. Added fraud alerts to every account I had. It's been almost a year now, and I still get emails sometimes from debt collectors looking for Mr. Edwards. I ignore most of them. The ones I don't, I forward to my file folder labeled Nicole Fallow. I haven't seen her since. She's still in the same city. We even have mutuals. I know she's dating someone new. Sometimes I wonder if she did the same thing to him. If his name will pop up in some collection list a year from now with a $0 balance and a huge dent in his credit. Or maybe it was just me. Maybe I was the final project. What gets me isn't the money or the credit score or the hassle. It's the fact that she did it without saying a word, not in anger, not in heat. Just casually, methodically, like signing me up for a subscription I couldn't cancel. She didn't yell. She didn't throw things. She didn't scream at me in the middle of a party. She just waited until I was gone, picked up a pen, and signed my name. The family reunion was already weird enough without him showing up. It was one of those forced, awkward things my aunt insisted on organizing every couple years, where everyone brings too much food, pretends they all stayed in touch, and spends a day dodging questions about their jobs or relationships. We had rented out a picnic area at a state park. There were folding chairs, paper plates, lukewarm pasta salad, and name tags, the kind of vibe where the only entertainment was watching which cousin got too drunk too early. I was mid-conversation with my uncle about absolutely nothing when I noticed a guy across the lawn who didn't belong. He was tall in jeans and a black hoodie, just sort of hovering near the edge of the group. He wasn't standing with anyone, but he was sipping a soda and nodding along like he belonged there. At first, I thought he was someone's friend. That happens. People bring a boyfriend or a coworker who's stuck in town with no plans. But this guy didn't introduce himself to anyone. He just blended in, walked around a little, smiled politely. He even signed the guest book my aunt left on a fold-out table near the grill. I saw him write something down and walk away like he had every right to be there. I was about to ask my cousin if she knew who he was when I saw him talking to my mom. And I don't mean casual chit-chat. They were standing off to the side, away from the crowd. He was speaking low, hands tucked in his pockets, nodding solemnly. She looked confused at first, then concerned. She kept glancing around, and I could see her asking questions, tilting her head like she was trying to place him. After a minute, she started looking straight at me. That's when I walked over. By the time I got to them, the guy was already saying goodbye. I got close enough to hear him say, "I just thought she should know." Then he turned, walked past me like I didn't exist, and disappeared down the trail leading toward the parking lot. My mom was pale. Her mouth was slightly open, like she was mid-thought but couldn't finish it. I asked what he said. She just shook her head and muttered, "I can't believe it." I kept pressing, and eventually she told me what he had claimed, that he was a friend of mine from a while back, and that he needed to get something off his chest. He told her that we had an inappropriate relationship while I was still dating someone else, and that he felt guilty about it. Said he didn't want to lie anymore. Wanted to be honest with my family, which was complete garbage. The guy was Chris, my ex. My ex who I dated briefly, casually, not even seriously, for like 4 months almost 2 years ago. It ended because he was jealous, controlling, and weirdly obsessed with my family dynamic. He used to ask a lot of questions about them. Wanted to meet them almost immediately, which I thought was strange since we weren't even official. I ended things when he started hinting that I was ashamed of him because I wouldn't introduce him to my mom. He said he felt like I was hiding him. It got too intense too fast, so I backed out. He didn't take it well. There were texts, long ones, then silence. I figured that was the end. Apparently not. Now he'd shown up at a literal family reunion, pretended to be some long-lost friend, and fed my mom a fake story about me cheating on an ex, which made no sense because I wasn't even seeing anyone else during that time. He straight up fabricated an entire fake scandal and just casually dropped it like a grenade at a cookout. My mom was rattled. She didn't know who to believe. She asked me questions like she was trying to understand the situation. I told her the truth, that he was an ex who clearly hadn't let go and was trying to stir something up. She nodded, but I could tell there was still doubt. That's the part that got to me, how easily he slipped into the narrative and twisted it. And everyone else, it just assumed he was someone's friend. Nobody stopped him. Nobody noticed anything weird about him walking around, drinking someone else's soda, inserting himself into a literal bloodline gathering. He didn't yell. He didn't make a scene. He was polite, calm, deliberate, which somehow made it worse. Later that night, I checked the guest book. My aunt had already posted a photo of it on Facebook with a caption like, "Well, a lovely day with the whole fam." I zoomed in. Sure enough, near the bottom, in neat handwriting, Chris, friend of / my name's cousin. He even signed it with a smiley face. I called my cousin. Asked if she brought anyone named Chris. She had no idea who I was talking about. Nobody did. He made up his entry and slipped out before anyone had a chance to realize something was off. The next week, I started getting anonymous DMs. Nothing aggressive, just stuff like, "You should really be honest with your family," and "It always catches up to you." All from random accounts with no profile photos and barely any followers. Probably burners, probably him. I blocked them, but I couldn't block the damage. My mom still brings it up sometimes in subtle ways. Not accusing, but definitely not letting it go. That seed of doubt, he planted it watered it, and walked away before anyone saw him holding the hose. And for what? For drama, for revenge, for closure he didn't deserve. It wasn't about getting me back. It wasn't about love. It was about control, about inserting himself back into my life, even if only as a whisper in someone's ear at a family barbecue. He didn't scream. He didn't cause a scene. He just showed up, told a quiet lie, and let it spread like smoke at a campfire. And the worst part is, most of the people there still don't even know it happened. He came in, told his little story, and left before dessert was served. But I'll never forget the look on my mom's face when she said, "I just can't believe it." Neither can I. I knew something was off the second my kid told me about the new lunch lady. She came home one day with a juice box in one hand and her little backpack half open, rambling about how Miss Taylor let her have 2 cookies instead of 1. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Kids exaggerate all the time. But then she kept bringing her up. Said she talked funny. Said she always knew which parents were divorced. Said she asked what kind of car I drove, which is a weird thing for a lunch monitor to care about. That was enough to make me curious, so I checked in with the school. Not in an aggressive way, just a quick email to the vice principal asking if any new volunteers had joined. She replied with a list of names, and there it was, Taylor / last name. Name, same spelling. There are a lot of Taylors in the world, but this one had the same last name too. I sat back in my chair for a second, then opened Facebook just to check. I hadn't looked at her profile in over a year. It was locked down now, but the profile photo was recent. Same haircut, same smug smirk, same person I dated for 6 chaotic months and then spent a year trying to get out of my head. It wasn't even a messy breakup. It was one of those slow death relationships where every conversation turns into a weird competition, where everything you say gets twisted into some deeper insult. She never yelled, never threw anything. She just drained me. Emotionally, mentally, constant poking, always testing boundaries. When I finally ended it, she told me I was too fragile for a real relationship and locked me. And now, apparently, she was serving juice to my kid. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe she moved to the area and didn't even know my daughter went there. Maybe she just needed volunteer hours or something to put on her resume. I tried to believe that. Until my daughter started repeating things I never told her. We were driving one morning, and out of nowhere she asked, "Daddy, did you really crash your car when you were 20?" That was something I told Taylor during a random late-night conversation, and not something I ever mentioned around my kid. A week later, she asked if I still talked to that girl from before, then described her almost exactly. Hair color, voice, jaw, like someone had fed her a script. I emailed the school again. Asked about the vetting process for volunteers. The staff was polite but vague. Said they required background checks and references, and that Taylor had passed both. They said she was volunteering 1 day a week, and mostly just helped during lunch and recess. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't even technically wrong, but it felt intentional. Every time I picked up my daughter, I checked the playground to see if Taylor was there. A couple of times, I caught a glimpse of her near the gate, always chatting with other parents, never looking directly at me. She blended in, she wanted to blend in, like she was slipping into my world through a side door. Then the weird comments started. One mom came up to me during pickup and said, "Taylor mentioned you used to date." She laughed like it was harmless and added, "She said you changed a lot." I asked what that meant, and she said, "Oh, nothing bad, just that you used to be a little difficult." It was happening slowly, subtly, the way Taylor always did things. She wasn't screaming outside my house or slashing my tires. She was embedding herself into the social circle of my kid's school, making casual comments, planting little ideas, shaping the version of me that other people saw. I talked to my daughter's teacher, tried to stay cool. I asked how involved Taylor really was. The teacher smiled and said she was very engaged. Said the kids liked her. Said she was very invested in the school community. That was the word that stuck, invested. Like this was more than just helping out, like it was personal. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to be that parent. But I also wasn't going to let my ex weave herself into my kid's life like it was some long game. So I met with the principal, laid everything out. I told her we had history, that Taylor and I dated, That she had access to personal stuff and was now repeating it to my daughter. I was calm, respectful, but firm. The principal nodded a lot, took notes, and said she'd look into it. A week later, Taylor stopped showing up. No official notice. No announcement. My daughter just came home one day and said, "Miss Taylor doesn't work there anymore." I asked why, and she shrugged and said, "I think she had other stuff to do." I thought that would be the end of it. But then, about a month later, I ran into her in the grocery store. I was grabbing cereal, and she was suddenly there next to me in the same aisle, holding a basket with 2 things in it: almond milk and a kid's craft kit. She didn't even say hi. She just looked at me and said, "Still paranoia, huh?" I didn't answer. I just stared at her, waiting to see if she'd follow up with anything. She didn't. She smiled, turned, and walked away. That was it. I got in my car and sat there for 10 minutes before driving home. There was no blow-off, no restraining order, no dramatic confrontation. Just quiet, calculated manipulation. The kind where people question if anything actually happened. The kind where she'd always say, "I was just volunteering," or "I was just being friendly." But I knew better. She didn't show up at that school of health. She didn't volunteer for the community. She did it to stay close, to send a message, to remind me that she still had access to parts of my life that I thought were safe. And she did it with a smile and a name tag. Miss Taylor, lunch monitor, emotional landmine. I was in the middle of microwaving leftover pad thai when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. It wasn't a local area code either, which usually meant spam or some random scam about extended car warranties. I almost let go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Hi," the voice said, soft but clear. "I'm Dr. Ellison. I'm Lindsay's therapist." For a second, I thought it was a prank. I blinked and leaned against the counter, trying to process what I just heard. Then the voice continued, polite and calm, like she was reading off a cue card. "She asked me to reach out to you directly to facilitate a conversation. I understand there were some unresolved matters, and she felt a mediated space would be more constructive for closure." That's when I should have hung up. Instead, like an idiot, I stayed on the line and said something dumb like, "Oh, okay." Dr. Ellison, or whoever she really was, told me she had been working with Lindsay for a few months, and that they had discussed doing a kind of verbal accountability session. Not in person, just a single call. She said it was just about me listening. Not debating, not arguing, just hearing Lindsay out. It felt weird from the start, like, since when does therapy include third-party surprise calls? But my curiosity got the better of me, and I said sure. Dr. Ellison scheduled the call for the following Thursday at 7 p.m. She said she'd be on the line to mediate and keep it respectful. Thursday night came, and I honestly thought it would fall through. But at exactly 7 o'clock, my phone rang again. Same number. I answered. It was Dr. Ellison, same voice. She thanked me for showing up and then patched Lindsay into the call. I hadn't heard her voice in a long time. It felt jarring, like opening an old journal and finding a fresh entry. No pleasantries, no small talk. Just her saying, "I appreciate you being here," followed by a deep breath. Then she launched straight into it. It wasn't a conversation. It was a monologue. She had a list. I could tell because of the way she paused between items, like she was checking off bullet points. She brought up every single thing I had ever done that she didn't like. Some of it real, some exaggerated, some I had no memory of at all. "You always made me feel like I was too emotional. You never validated my anxiety. You once told your friend that I needed to chill, and I heard it through the wall. You were defensive when I told you I felt invisible at your friend's birthday." She kept going, and the weirdest part was how organized it all was. It didn't feel like someone venting. It felt like someone presenting evidence, like she'd been preparing this moment for months, maybe longer. Every time I opened my mouth to respond, Dr. Ellison gently cut in with, "Let's give Lindsay space to finish her thoughts." I wasn't allowed to say anything. Not a word. Just nod silently into the void of the call while I dissected our relationship like it was a failed science experiment. The list lasted 47 minutes. I know because I checked the call duration when it ended. 47 straight minutes of being told I was selfish, dismissive, cold, inattentive, emotionally immature, passive-aggressive, avoidant, sarcastic at the wrong times, overly logical, too casual with intimacy, and not supportive enough of her career. At one point, she said, "When I told you I wanted to be a poet, you laughed and changed the subject." That wasn't true. I remember saying, "Dope, send me your stuff when it's done." But now, years later, that memory had been rewritten into a crime. Finally, when she wrapped up, Dr. Ellison said, "Thank you for listening. If you'd like to offer a short reflection, you can." A short reflection, like it was a yoga class. I didn't know what to say. I stammered out something like, "I'm sorry you felt that way. I didn't realize so much of what I did affected you like that," which was about as neutral as I could make it. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted the call to end. Lindsay didn't respond. She just said, "Okay. Thank you for your time," and then she hung up. I sat there in my kitchen staring at the microwave clock, still blinking from the pad thai I never finished. I felt like I'd just been hit by a bus full of old text messages and inside jokes turned into landmines. I Googled Dr. Ellison's number. Nothing came up. I called it back, straight to voicemail. No professional greeting. Just a generic voice saying, "This user is unavailable." I don't think she was a real therapist. I think Lindsay either made her up or roped some friend into playing the part, which honestly makes it worse, because it meant the whole thing wasn't even about closure or growth or any of that. It was a performance, a carefully staged play where I was the silent audience and she was the star. A week later, I had a long email from an account I didn't recognize. No subject line, just a message saying she hoped I'd taken the time to reflect on what was shared, and that the process was healing for her. Then, at the very end, "Even if you don't believe I deserve the call, I did." I didn't respond. The truth is, I don't even think Lindsay missed me. I think she missed being heard. And if she couldn't get that through texts or conversation, she was going to force it some other way. She didn't want dialogue. She wanted to talk at me with the credibility of a fake therapist backing her up. It was like being tricked into a courtroom where the judge, jury, and prosecution were all the same person. And what's wild is how reasonable it all looked on the surface. A call for closure, a neutral space, a calm tone. It's the kind of thing that sounds healthy until you realize it's just a trap in soft lighting. Since then, I've screened unknown numbers. I don't answer any voicemail that starts with, "Hi, I'm calling on behalf of." Because once you've been cornered by a fake therapy session with someone holding a grudge and a spreadsheet of your flaws, you stop picking up calls from strangers altogether.